Hello, and welcome again to the Targeted Individual Program. Uh, I'm doing another video again because, like I said, whenever they engage in the heavy handed psychological harassment or psyops, I take that opportunity to do videos, do more shows to expose and explain exactly what it is that they're doing. And as you see, as I started the show, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but the car honking outside as usual. Whenever I start my show on talk show, they'll honk their horns, or there'll be police sirens, or some sort of noise that they'll make, um, just to, I guess, get my attention. And but that's okay. That's okay. I'm here to expose exactly what it is that they're doing, how they're doing it, the use of law enforcement to harass and try to intimidate me, the use of noise campaign to prevent me from sleeping, to make me become aware of surveillance. So, for example, if I'm on my computer and there's a video that I'm watching that they don't want me to watch, they'll start off with the sirens. Or if there's a particular word that the person on the video may say, then I'll get like a very short siren. And, those are recognizable words that people say that every time they say those words, there's a siren, there's a sound of siren, right? And it's a very short sound. It's not the woo 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 woo. It's like woo, and then that's it. And if they say the word again, it's woo, and then that's it. You don't hear anything else. And so usually words like win, die, kill, or killer, um, words like silent, be quiet, those sort of things. It's an attempt to silence and to psychologically threaten me with bodily harm and death, or with incarceration, uh, and so forth. But in a coercive persuasion program, the perpetrators, it is their, I guess, job to kind of keep you in silence, or to do what they have to do to silence you, whether that means setting you up, or whether that means psychologically threatening you from exposing what it is that they're doing. Okay. And let me be clear, as I said this before, that the psychological aspect of this program, because there's two parts to this program. Okay. And this is non-consensual human experimentation. So the first part is the experimenting and developing of directed energy weapons, as well as illegal microchipping for the purpose and research of remote neural monitoring. And so they need to test these weapons and technology out in the public space. And so victims are chosen, and then they are implanted, they are psychologically conditioned without their knowledge through the use of what is called coercive persuasion tactics, as well as technological psychological process like neurolinguistic programming, or what is called dark NLP, and the use of setups and frame ups to try to leverage the victims into silence, or to try to blackmail them and silence them, from coming forward to talk about and expose what it is that they're doing. And so they will villainize and demonize the subject, right, against their will, against the subject's will, and they will spread rumors throughout the community, all communities, inside and outside the targets, the experimentee uh, uh, um, neighborhood or environment, and they will once they realize that the subject is not remaining silent and is about to speak out against what is being done to him or her, they move into the psychological phase full time, which is to discredit the target, the person that they are experimented on. And to do this, they would have had to set the target up through manipulation of the person and the environment around them and the people around them, to try to get them to commit a crime in which they can use as leverage in order to blackmail that subject into silence. Okay? The use of community members, particularly those within the religious communities, because we're talking about Christian, Muslims, Jewish, Pentecostals, whatever religious denomination, and they go to the religious community because the religious community are very easily manipulated, and so they give them a cause, okay, and whether they call it a righteous cause or whatever they call it, it's a cause. It's a cause that these people believe in carrying out, and that cause is the silence or the destruction of the target. Okay, and the target, I mean targeted individuals, or SPs for suppressive person, as they say in Scientology. And so this is something that they do. They do try to do this to me on a regular basis. The use of the police as a harassment tool or as a tool to intimidate and threaten. The psychological threats against my children. When people walk past me, they're staring at my kids, at my son and my daughter, as they walk past me. As a threat, to hey, we're going to do this to your kids if you don't remain silent. Okay. And so one thing I know is that if they can't get rid of you, and they will try to get rid of you, okay, once you start speaking out like I have and others have been doing, they will do everything in their power to try to get rid of you, right? Because when it comes to human experimentation, those that are committing these crimes do not want to be held accountable, okay? And so, they are hidden in layers and layers of structure, in terms of, there's a people at the top, then the people below them, then the people below them, then the people below them, and then it goes down to the ground level, which is like psychiatrists, doctors, your neighbors, all these people. And history has already shown that all these people in those professions have all taken place in actually not taken place, but have all taken part in non-consensual human experimentation. And that is a fact, okay? And so the one thing you have to remember as a target is that this is not new. This is not new. Every generation of people have been put into non-consensual human experimentation for the advancements in science, technology, psychology. It is nothing new. All right. And so, you have to decide as a TI whether you're going to suffer in silence or you're going to speak out while you're suffering, because that's what we all are dealing with is suffering, because our financial resources are taken away. So if you are working, you get fired from your job or laid off. If you have money in the bank, they will damage your property so that you will have to fix whatever it is that they damage, or you replace whatever it is that is stolen, all to deplete your your financial resources to get you to a level in where they will try to have the upper hand in terms of keeping you silent by trying to send you subliminal messages saying that, well, if you're going to talk about what's happening, you're not going to get a job, you're not going to get any kind of financial support, uh, you're going to be lonely, you're not going to have any friends, and a whole host of other things, which I'm not going to get into at this point. But those who are TIs know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those who don't, just do a research on human experimentation before you, quick to judge and say, that we're all crazy. And not to say that what they have done hasn't affected us psychologically, because it certainly has, and not in a good way. In a destructive way. And so, you know, we have to, as TIs, have to try to hold on to that little bit of our sanity that is still there. You know, I mean, if you look at the Scientology series from Leah Remini on A&E, you hear those that exited Scientology that said, hey, we are who Scientology attacked, who were not members of the church. They're saying it's like, hey, you lose your sanity going through this. And because, again, they're using a coercive persuasion program, right? And so we have to understand that. Now, there's a video here, which I'm going to play just a few minutes of. You can find it on YouTube. That's where I found it from. But it's very interesting, very telling. And I want to play the first few minutes, and then I'm going to get back to talking about what is being said. I play this video on my talk show, which I have every Tuesday on talkshoe.com at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And the show ID is 8106. If you don't have an account, or you're not a member of TalkShoe, you can still call in and just press 1 and then pound. Okay?
Hello and welcome to the World Beyond Belief. My name is still Paul Marco, and luckily with us today we have Eric Karlstrom again, and he's going to talk about gang stalking. Now, I know Eric as a brilliant researcher, and he's able to articulate his research, and he's really been uncovering a lot having to do with the New Age, deception, climate change, and now he's deep into gang stalking. And I would say he's probably one of the premier researchers looking into gang stalking. He's not only a researcher in this area, but he's also a target in this area. So that's the Eric Karlstrom that I know. Let me also let Dr. Karlstrom introduce himself. He has quite an illustrious career before he got into full-time research. Dr. Karlstrom, welcome to the World Beyond Belief.
Well, thank you, Paul, Dr. Marco, actually. Yeah, we're speaking across the hemispheres here. I'm in Crestone, Colorado. You're in Ecuador. But of course, your heart, part of your heart's still here because
Yes.
of your background in Colorado. But yeah, I really appreciate having a chance to talk to you again about this subject, which again is going to be on gang stalking and electronic harassment. Um, we have done 2 interviews on that subject before, and as a result, I've gotten contacted by individuals, targeted individuals, and perhaps some perpetrators masquerading as targeted individuals, uh, and have gotten more connected to the TI community, targeted community, individual community globally. This is a huge issue. Let me just give a brief background of my own uh, my own life and history. I was a geography professor at California State University, most recently in the Central Valley of California for 22 years, retired in 2011. I was a physical geography professor, so climate change and landforms and soils and climatology, environmental issues were what I taught and researched. And so my naturalclimatechange.org website is all about the global warming fraud and the political push behind it, and also the various functions that it performs for the ruling elite, one of which I think is to be cover for geoengineering. And another one is to, of course, fund global government with the United Nations collecting all these carbon taxes, et cetera. And we'd all have our carbon footprint, and they would control our energy use, et cetera. This is the aspiration, the long-term aspiration of the ruling elite, as this issue's been with us for almost half a century now, and it won't go away. Doesn't matter how many times we disprove this bogus hypothesis of man-caused global warming. It doesn't matter because they want to create a new reality, and they get to dictate the terms of that. Another website that I have put together, really starting about 9/11, is 911nwo.com, and when you're a professor for 30 years, as I was, you sometimes learn to see behind the cover stories to the real story, and if you don't, then you want to find out what's the real story behind these cover stories. And of course, 911 also is a fraudulent false flag synthetic terror event created by our government in cooperation certainly with other intelligence agencies around the world in order to I have found justify all these wars in the Middle East and to set up a police state, surveillance state at home and around the world, as it turns out. So we've spent over $1 trillion in these nefarious wars in the Middle East that don't benefit, certainly don't benefit the people of the United States, and certainly create chaos and misery and murder and mayhem in those areas. And we've also spent probably about the same amount of money creating this new Gestapo police state at home in America. And gang stalking, directed energy weapon use, electronic harassment is part of that. And so it's my 911nwo.com website that has gotten quite huge, which of course disproves or proves that 911 is an inside job, and disproves the official narrative as being a ridiculous, silly story, about as silly as man-caused global warming. I mean, these things make us stupid. If we believe these things, if we buy into these outrageous lies, of course, Joseph Goebbels said, a big lie is, if you repeat it enough, is more easily believed than a small lie, Right. So these are the huge lies, and Big Brother is telling them to us, and we need to understand what's behind it. And, of course, it turns out that if we look at history, we see a long sequence of false flag events and pre and post 9/11, and we can put it in its context, historical context. Who's doing these things and what is, cui bono, who benefits, Right. And so it's out of the 911nwo.com website that I have moved into this area of my new website, which is called gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com. It's not It's not a clever camouflage. It's right out there. This website is about gang stalking, mind control, and cults. And of course, these are all quite connected. Uh, and again, if you look at the historical development of these things, you know, it becomes obvious who's behind it and what the goals are. A little less obvious, the very, very high tech black technologies that are being directed against the American people and citizens of the world now. That it would be an interesting subject as well, just to go into the the, uh, the history of patents and whatnot, of the electronic or psychotronic weapons, sometimes called soft kill, slow kill, silent kill, non-lethal weapons, that the military has been engaged in perfecting now for the last half century. And again, this goes right back to the CIA's MK Ultra mind control programs, 149 sub-projects, top secret, more secret than the Manhattan Project. But of course, it's hard to keep those kinds of secrets when so many institutions are involved. And there were 7 boxes of files. CIA Director Richard Helms thought he had destroyed all the files for MK Ultra back in the early 70s. But John Marks, who wrote The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, and others, somebody found 7 boxes of documents, heavily redacted, of course, concerning the 149 MK Ultra subprojects in some financial office where they weren't supposed to be. And then he got a team of State Department people to look through those things and then put 2 and 2 together and found out, okay, this is referring to this kind of research and such a, these people did it at this institution. So all of this has come out. Yeah. Again, it's supposed to be top secret. The FBI's COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program of the 60s and 70s, in which they killed 28 Black Panthers, and other targeted groups in the United States, political activist groups, some of which the CIA created, like the Weathermen and the Symbionese Liberation Army and things like that. The FBI then goes after these groups with these very, very sophisticated harassment techniques. And of course, this is called counterintelligence. Well, turns out this is exactly what the East German Stasi police did to their own citizens back, post World War II in the Cold War, especially in the 70s and 80s. And this is shown in the movie The Lives of Others. And of course, when the Berlin Wall came down and the East German government crumbled and Germany reunited, then the East German government, or what was left of it, opened up the files, and turns out the Stasi police, which is their secret police, had kept files on everybody, detailed, just like our NSA does, right. On every American, and those files were opened up. And so, right at the end of this movie, The Lives of Others, you see the special features, and they actually show you the huge building with all these paper files at that time. And people were able to then go and find out what the government, had written about them in these ultra secret files. Well, this is in the design of the Department of Homeland Security, which of course is post 9/11 operation, now with 225,000 employees and a $40 billion annual budget. They got Stasi officers, as well as Nazi officers, Gestapo officers, to help them design the Department of Homeland Security. So, who is behind the gang stalking? Well, it is the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and all their fusion centers, and 78 fusion centers in every state, in which, local law enforcement is all connected up with these guys. And these huge budgets, $60 billion a year for the FBI, 42 billion of which goes to outsourcing to corporate entities. So you have now the corporatocracy, the private sector, doing this as well. So you got NSA, CIA, FBI, DHS, and then all the Department of Defense intelligence agencies. They're all involved in this. and the technologies coming from these sectors. And again, that would be a whole nother show. Let's talk about where these high, these directed energy weapons, when they were developed, who actually has the patent on them, and then what's the history. These are black ops. These are
Yeah.
black projects, and now it's being turned loose on the American people, to silently harass and to neutralize, discredit, actually murder, take out,
Sure.
eliminate, targeted individuals. And so this is very dark. I mean, this is, if you look at it. Well, let me just give a couple books, several books for people. I really want to share this information with people who may be targeted individuals, and reach out to the people who are not targeted, so that they might see what has happened
Right.
to our Bill of Rights in this country. Basically these programs eliminate the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments, as well as your freedom of speech. They surveil you, etc. So our whole nation, I think, is at stake with these programs, because these are, as we said in our last interview, weapon systems that can be scaled up and scaled back. Could create a huge holocaust around the world with these very programs. It's a silent war. It's an invisible war, because directed energy weapons, of course, are not visible. And so when they talk about soft kill, slow kill, silent kill, non-lethal weapons, what we're talking about is microwave, milliwave, scalar waves, silent sound, sonar, that are coming from satellites. They're coming from Gwen Towers. They're coming from HARP, the High Active Frequency Auroral Research Project in Alaska, and the other 20-some ionospheric heaters around the world, HARP being the largest. And they come from portable devices. They have portable microwave devices, radio frequency devices that can beam directly into the targeted individual's home, go through the walls, radar that goes through the walls, etc. Let me give you these books, because I think education is the very, very best antidote. It's the very best protection weapon for targeted individuals. The more you know about it, the less you're likely to be, eliminated, killed, isolated, taken out through a whole series of it's psychological warfare, it's directed energy warfare. So the books that I think are very solid and that I would recommend, I wish it was in every library in the world. Dr. John Hall is an anesthesiologist out of San Antonio, Texas, and a targeted individual. He's written two books, Satellite Terrorism, A New Breed of Something or Other. That's his first. The second one is the one I'm recommending, and that is Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control. And in this book, he identifies 6 phases of targeting.
Now, I don't know if it's going to show up in the recording, but as soon as he said the name of the book, which is Guinea Pigs, Technology for Control, there was a honk. All right? So this is what I'm talking about. As I'm watching the video, something like that, certain keywords, control, all this other stuff, they would just do a honk. And it was just a quick honk, a honk, and then that's it. All right? So, again, this is the type of surveilling me in real time on my online activities. And then when certain keywords are said, they would honk their horn. And this is happening on a daily, continuous basis, every single day. It doesn't matter what time they're doing this.
All people who are targeted will go through, and this is a protocol now being established around the world. First of all, selection, and you can be put on these terrorist watch lists, or whatever they want to call them, notification lists at first in Britain, by anybody. In other words, if there's somebody in your community who doesn't like you and they have some contacts with the NSA or local police, they can report these experiments on people of all different races and colors and ages. And so you get on the list, you are now in the program until death. Very rarely does somebody get out of the program. So they will continue to harass you until death. Okay, selection is the first. Surveillance is the second, and this can take 2 or 3 years or more. Ideally, the target does not know this is happening, and I think this is true. I think most targets don't even know they're being targeted. Period. But yeah, surveillance is the second, and they'll break into your homes and they'll hack your emails and they'll do all kinds of things, hack your phones, etc. The third one and fourth one go together, and that's the gang stalking, sometimes called organized stalking. Neighborhood watch groups and vigilante volunteer police, and again by all these spy groups. So we have.
All right. So the video, something is going on with the video. Let me try to refresh it and see if you can get a little better quality. Let's go back to where we was.
Each
Let's see here. Where was I?
If
At
there's
the 16-minute mark.
etc. The third one and fourth one go together, and that's the gang stalking, sometimes called organized stalking. Neighborhood watch groups and vigilante volunteer police, and again by all these spy groups. So we have spies all over the place being paid in this country to do this. And I'm toying now with trying to figure out what the numbers are, but it must be in the millions in America. People who are actually hearing or told.
All right. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the video there as, there we have some interruption that's going on. And, stuff like this is something that happens, whenever they're trying to cause interference or to disrupt me from doing a video or doing a show. This is something that is not new. It is their job, I guess, to try to prevent me or cause disruption and harassment in every single way as I attempt to expose what it is that they're doing. So again, this is nothing new, but he makes some very good points in terms of the spying from your neighbors and stuff like that, and this is a culture that they have been creating. The police state have been creating this culture in the American society in which citizens are spying on each other. They are harassing targeted individuals or targets, dissident, whistleblowers, someone who they consider to be a threat, in whatever capacity they mean threat. So this is something that's not new. Okay, this is something that, as he said, in East Germany, the Stasi's, the secret police, had programs like this, and this is what is happening in America, and it has been happening in America. I just think that as decades have gone by and the technological advancement has been made, with the advent of the internet becoming such a huge part of everyone's daily life, people are sharing their stories and people are being connected through their stories, through their experience of what is happening to them, and connecting with other people like me. I mean, when I became aware of what was happening to me, that was it was in about 2001, and there wasn't really much stuff on the web. And then maybe 2 years later, I found others who had shared their experience by creating blogs online, and I read them and I was like, hey, this is exactly what's happening to me. And so you have to be aware of that. For those, like I said, for those who don't want to believe that these things don't happen, just go to Wikipedia and search unethical human experimentation in the United States, and you will see a long list of non-consensual human experimentation. And now we're into the new realm, which is direct energy weapon. Direct energy weapon, as long as, and also uh, neurotechnology, mind control technology. Okay, um, remote neural monitoring, which I am part of that non-consensual experimentation. I have been microchipped for the purpose of remote neural monitoring. And you can Google that. It's a technology being developed by the security agency and law enforcement to combat crime. Now, I'm not a criminal, okay? They may try to make me believe that or try to condition me to to be a criminal, but I'm not a criminal. But they want you to think in that manner because, again, it's part of the experiment, right? And you look at what it is that they're trying to do when it comes to remote neural monitoring is the prevention of uh, certain criminal activities or even criminal thought. So a matter of fact, it is like they want to create a thought police, right? In which our thoughts are being monitored to deter anyone from committing criminal acts. And you know, before being a target, I probably wouldn't have any problem with that. I say, hey, but the fact is this: it is an invasion of your privacy. It is an invasion of your private thought. And what they're gonna do? They're gonna microchip everyone and monitor everyone. So for those of us who haven't committed a crime, you know, so we're microchipped without our consent, and if we think about creating committing a crime, then what? They're gonna arrest us for a pre-crime. This is like some sort of minority report shit that's happening here. I mean, it's not funny, but you know, thinking about it, it kind of makes me laugh because it's absurd in my mind, but I guess it's not in theirs. And so, like I said, those with power will do things so that they remain in power. And when you want to quail any kind of civil disobedience or anything like that, they will use psychological means, and they will develop psychological weapons, whether it be technological or psychological. They will develop these things just for that. So, as he said about the silent war, this is exactly what's happening. It is a silent war that is going on here in today's society and the world, because other countries do the same thing to their citizens and to people who live in their country. I have traveled outside the United States and have experienced the same thing. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about. All right, and so and also I have to understand the police are a big part of our targeting. They are a huge part of our targeting. Not all in law enforcement, but law enforcement has always been used as a tool, right? And that's just one aspect, the use of law enforcement, to silence, to uh, arrest, false arrest, to frame, to uh, intimidate those who they deem to be a threat. Okay, and so, and not also that, but also the other government agencies, right? Such as the Department of Housing and Development, the EPA, the Human Resources. What's the agency? The Human and I can't remember. Is it a Human Resources Agency? I'm sorry, the Health and Human Service Department. It may be called something different back in the day, but that's what it is called now. And so all these agencies have been used as a tool to engage in non-consensual human experimentation. And so now, as he said that in the interview, Dr. Eric Karlstrom says that now, you know, private industries are getting involved. And as a TI, even though you may feel it's private corporation, the technology is being funded for development by the U.S. government. Okay, so just remember that. So it all comes back to the U.S. government, whether it be the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. These are all government entities or government agencies. Okay, so when I say the government, I don't mean the people on Capitol Hill. I'm talking about the Department of Defense, the NSA, the CIA, the Department of Health and Human Services, the EPA, all these agencies who have in the past and even to this day continue with non consensual human experimentation for the advancement of technology, of psychology, of biology, of chemistry. They're all participate in the past and have until this day. So you have to remember that. And the people who they're experimented on are always labeled crazy. You know, if they haven't killed them or killed us, or we haven't committed suicide from the torturous act that's being committed on us, you know, they either try to arrest us, to incarcerate us, or to have us put into a mental institution. Okay? The United States is no different from South Korea when it comes to these kind of acts, from Russia when it comes to these kind of acts, from China when it comes to these kind of acts, from any country that use psychiatry as a tool to discredit, to destroy the lives of those they deem a threat, or to those who they've experimented on non-consensually and illegally. This is what they do. And so they created a cult within cults, and a large cult of multi-ethnic, diversive group of people, young, old, male, female, gay, straight, whatever. They have created what I call now the ultimate cult. It is people of different faith who are engaged, some together, some not, because, you know, some of these things are compartmentalized. So one group may not know what the other group is doing, but they all use the same taught tactics, right? Which, when it comes to coercive persuasion programming. Okay? And so this is, again, the ultimate cult created by the police, the government, those in law enforcement, and that's on the lower level, to psychologically harass, torture, and the use of law enforcement to to physically threaten and intimidate those of us who have been put into this type of program, to try to silence us. Okay, even by threatening our own family members, our own kids, our own persons. They have all attempted these things. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys very much, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And as long as they keep up with the heavy-handed harassment and intimidation, I will continue to make more videos explaining exactly what it is that they're doing and what they have done.